Hi, I'm James from Chaosium. When I sat down with Jay the other day, we started talking about her insight and experience in the field of art direction. I'm going to jump over to that interview in just a moment, but first, remember to subscribe to the Chaosium YouTube channel. It helps us a lot and it lets us create more content like this. Thanks.
I didn't have any experience as an art director before I started working on Cyberpunk. And my friend Mike Pondsmith, we were friends, and he was trying to get his company sort of back in action. It was several years, 3 years, I think, before the game came out, 2077. And I mean, they've been producing stuff, but it was a very slow and on a small scale. And he wanted to kind of make that better and had a bunch of ideas for things. And he just came to me one day and he said, if I could give you your dream job title and duties, what would it be? And I was like, oh, man, I'd love to be an art director someday or a creative director. That would be so fun. He goes, done. I didn't know it was a job interview because we're just buddies hanging out. I had no idea. And the next thing I knew, we're making Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart Kit. And, I got to just like, I don't have a single artist. I'm going to run out and find some. And I just cold called a lot of people until I got people to really take us seriously and answer back. And at that point, you could go on to ArtStation and not really find a whole lot of cyberpunk art. It was mostly fantasy setting, Witcher kind of styles, Gwent, that kind of thing. So it was a difficult search for that first book, but almost every artist that worked on that is still working with Talsorian. So
A part of the direction role obviously means that you have to direct other artists and be this cohesive center point for an entire project. Have you found that you had to work with artists who had a different style of working, maybe than you were expecting or than you have in your own work?
oh yeah, absolutely. And to have a different way of doing things, not just a different style in the look of their art, but also different process. Because I deal with so many people, and toward the beginning, when I wasn't dealing with as many artists, I kind of went with sort of whichever person I was working on. Now that I've got four IPs that are things that I'm working on, I have to be very stringent about, okay, this is the process. I have to keep control of it because otherwise I just lose things and I lose track of stuff. So uh, yeah, it's been a great learning experience. I'm having a ball. Love working on every single one of these because they're all so disparate from one another.
What is the hardest part of being an art director?
The hardest part, honestly, is not getting to meet people in person. I mean, I know that's a little more common now, right? Because with COVID and all of that stuff, but it just, you want to celebrate, jump up and down and go have a beer with the guy after he's produced something really great, or she's put in this amazing character design or something, and you want to go have a beer with them and celebrate. You really can't. You just have to go, way to go, lad, and call it a day.
Is what's the part that brings the most unbridled joy? What's your favorite part of the job?
I love it when I show a lead developer a piece of art and they don't say anything for a minute. That's happened a few times where they just, and then you go, oh god, oh, they hate it, and then they're, oh my god, this is amazing, and you get that sort of feedback, and I always pass that on to the artist, and I tell them, it's like, oh, we will be calling on you again.
There's plenty of advice out there for people who want to start becoming artists, but I don't think there's a lot of advice for people who want to look into the art direction sphere. Or maybe I'm wrong there, but you could perhaps point to some of that advice.
I looked, I didn't find a whole lot.
Do you yourself have advice for people who are moving into an art direction role?
My biggest advice is to be open-minded and to be organized, like beyond organized. Make checklists, find an application online that can just help you keep track of all the tasks. Every single piece of art that I have that I'm art directing has a separate task inside of Asana, and each task has about 40 different to-dos that I make sure I get done. I would say learn how to write contracts, because that is something that if you really want to be competitive, most art directors don't know how to do. I have actually gotten very familiar with it and even wrote a lot of the legal copy for one of the contracts that we have now, because we ran into a little problem where people were taking images from online, and instead of like redrawing your face, they just drew your face, right? So they were using your likeness. And that's a big no-no. They didn't know that, but because we went through that process, I was able to, do a bunch of research and figure out some legal copy and hone it to exactly what we wanted, and make sure that it was good. So that's another thing that you can learn, is how to do that. And yeah, open-mindedness. So you want to kind of make sure that when, not just with the artist, though that is important as well, what they're going to show you, over directing an artist can really kill the relationship between you. So I give them a pretty good, very well written description, and if they come back to me with some sketches that are a little different, I will go back to the lead dev and I'll say, this is what they came up with, this is why. Now, does this work for us? Is this like a different idea or take on what you were thinking? And oftentimes it will be, and we'll just expand on what the artist has come up with because it was just a cooler idea. Sometimes, every once in a while, though, we're like, nope, this has to match the text. It's a story illustration. You need to follow the direction a little bit more.
We've talked about what an art director does, but obviously they work with artists a lot. What does an art director like to see from artists?
Oh, yeah. So I love that question because it's one that I get constantly. Um, what you want to do in a portfolio is make sure that, if you are a character designer and that's what you love to do and you really don't care for doing buildings, but maybe you did a few buildings and they turned out okay, don't put them in your portfolio. Keep them out. If you don't like doing it and it's not something you want to do, because I guarantee you, particularly in my case, somebody who does buildings, that's kind of rare. And, maybe I have a call for someone to draw a castle and I'm going to go to your portfolio. I'm going to see 2 really nice pieces in there. And then that's the call you're going to get from me. And you might not be happy with that. And then now you're starting to build your portfolio based on stuff that you're not really that into. So the other thing is you can trim down your portfolio, be realistic, take the criticism from several people, actually show it to everybody you can, and try and make sure those folks are honest with you, and just take out the pieces that don't feel as strong. And honestly, you're going to know when it's just a piece. I just love that piece because it's a drawing of my dog, but it's not necessarily a very strong piece in your portfolio. Take them out.
Keep it lean. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Is there any final points you'd like to add to anything that we've discussed as well?
I would like to say a little bit about diversity and inclusion. It's not just about who you're putting into the pieces of art, the illustrations, but also who you're including, right? Now, I mean, I don't mean to say that you have to hunt through and I'm only going to hire, people from Venus and there's only 2 guys out there, right? It's not like that, but it's just keeping it open in your mind to find other voices. And you can see it in the work. You can really see it in the work when you go through a portfolio. And you can feel when they're bringing something a little different to the table. And a lot of those folks are just looking for a shot. And I love to give new artists a shot. I love to give artists of every genre possible a shot. And, when you're creating artwork that goes into a book, illustrations, make sure that is including lots of different kinds of people. If you've looked through Cyberpunk Red, you will see every manner of person that I could possibly think of. And if I left anybody out, email me so we can get some folks included if I've forgotten anybody. So that's it.